Hey NEOS fam, how's it going? Welcome to week 10. I know you're expecting something more razzly-dazzly, more extravagant for the final week of the term, but unfortunately you're stuck with this guy right here. And enough of that, how was that worship? That guy playing the guitar kind of sucked, didn't he? Yeah, everyone else was great though. You guys did great. Guitarist, probably work on your finger picking and your strumming a little bit more, man, all right? And maybe you'll make it to stage at church, all right? All right, let's get on with it. So, I've been tasked with talking about communion today, so let's jump right into it. So I know a lot of you out there already know what communion is and how to take it. You might have done it before, or it's just something you've seen done time and time again. But today I really want to just like strip it back, kind of look at the basics, the fundamentals, and just talk about and see why we really do communion and like what makes it so important. So for anyone who may be wondering, what's communion? You may be thinking, oh, isn't it just when people eat a biscuit and then drinks juice? And honestly, yes, that's pretty much exactly what communion is. It's all we just eat either like a cracker or like a stripped piece of bread, drink a bit of juice, and for some people, boom, you're done. That's communion to you. But in a more biblical sense, we've got to look at a bunch of other things that make it so important. So back in Jesus' day, so back in when the story was told, when communion was first created, they had this thing called the Passover festival. Now, the Passover festival in Jewish culture is a really, really, really important time. Not just for the Jewish people, but I guess for believers in general. The Passover is a really important event that happened. But for Jewish culture, they take it a lot more seriously. They have like a whole set of rules and the whole, I guess, layout of the day and stuff, how everything goes. But I won't really get into that stuff today. But yeah, so it started from what was called the Passover. So the Passover was when God delivered the Israelites out of Egypt in its most basic sense. But we've got to understand what happened in order for God to take the Israelites out of Egypt. So everyone kind of knows the story. It's all the Israelites have been enslaved for like hundreds of years. But then finally, this one dude, Moses, comes along and was like, hey, yo, let my people go. Pharaoh's like, hey, nah, man, I don't think I can do that, you know. They're kind of making pyramids for me, you know. They kind of washing my feet for me. They feeding the food for me. I don't want to really let that go. So, you know, God sends out one plague. Pharaoh's like, nah, I don't believe that was God. My magicians could do the same. Next plague, same thing happens. And plague after plague after plague until the 9th plague. Pharaoh's still like, hey, yo, all this weird stuff has happened, man, and that's whack, but I don't want to let you guys go. And then it finally gets to the 10th one. And Moses goes up to Pharaoh. He's like, listen, man, this is the final plague God's going to send. In Pharaoh's mind, he's probably thinking, yes, I don't have to deal with this nonsense no more. But then Moses begins to speak. And he says, tonight, if you don't paint your door with blood, a lamb's blood, the angel of death will come in and kill your firstborn son. Now, Pharaoh is just like, yeah, this is probably just to scare me because it's like the 10th one. Like, I've already had 9 plagues. It's going to scare me. That's not going to happen. But Moses is like, all right, man, whatever you say. So Moses then goes off to all the Israelites, and then he tells them, paint your door with lamb's blood. Paint like the door frame with door's blood. Do you know how hard that would be? Just hold up how hard that would be to do. Because, for one, you got to kill a lamb, and then you probably got to, like, I don't know, hold it over. Did they have buckets back then? Or do they just, like, stab, like, what did they use as brushes? Did they get, like, a bunch of straw and then, like, stab a a lamb and then paint. Sorry, that was really dark. Anyway, the Israelites were told to paint the doorframe, otherwise an angel of death would come and kill their firstborn son. And lo and behold, that night, the spirit of death came, angel of death came, and he killed all the firstborn sons in Egypt, in every house that didn't have the blood-stained doorframe. But all the ones that did have the blood on the doorway, their sons were saved. And then this urged Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. So that's the kind of whole premise behind the Passover, is God's delivering of the Israelites from Egypt. And now, jumping back forward into the New Testament, when Jesus is having the Passover with his disciples. They're eating, they're having a good time. But then Jesus goes all right, one of you is going to betray me. And everyone's like, nah, man, we've been here with you for 3 years. No one's going to betray you. But then he goes on to talk about how what he's about to do is a link to his death. So he grabs a piece of bread, and then he grabs the wine. The bread, what that symbolized was Jesus' body. Not in a literal sense, because a lot of people get angry because they think, are you practicing cannibalism, dude? You're eating Jesus? And you're like, no, Jesus may be everywhere, but that does not mean I'm eating Jesus bread. Okay? We're not eating Jesus bread. Kind of we are, but not literally. We're not eating Jesus bread. Bread made of Jesus. All right. So the bread resembled his body. So Jesus would tear it apart, which showed that his body would be broken for others. So he broke the bread, he gave it to other people. Hey, yo, Mark, here you go. Peter, here you go. Luke, here you go. Was there a Luke? Sorry, I only have a Cert 4 in church ministry. Please don't mind my inaccurate theology. Sorry. Anyway, he's giving out the bread, and then he's like, all right, eat this in remembrance of the body that's been broken for you. And so, obviously when Jesus died on the cross, his body was beat, it was bruised, it was broken for you and I. It was broken for people. It was broken for everyone to, I guess, experience God's grace. If we jump over to John 6, this is after Jesus had fed the... Yeah, so John 6, this is after Jesus had fed the 5,000. And verse 26, he goes, Jesus answered them and said, most assuredly I say to you, you seek me, not because you saw the signs, but because you ate the loaves and you were filled. Do not labor for the food which perishes, but for the food which endures to everlasting life, which the Son of Man will give you, because God the Father has set his seal on him. So what that kind of means was, when Jesus performed his miracle of creating so much food, enough to feed 5,000 people, he kind of went away because all those people who started to follow him because of that, they weren't following him because he was Jesus and for what he could do, but not of who he was, but rather that he could give them free food. Now, honestly, to me, that's something I would do, just putting it out there. It's if some dude gave me enough food that I was full, and there were 4,999 other people there, and he's feeding enough people, I would want to follow this guy, hey man, you got a zinger box in your robe or something? It's what you got over there? It's you got a burrito? But no, Jesus wasn't happy with the fact that he gained so many followers all because of one miracle, right? No one really knew that what he was there for, and no one really wanted a relationship with him. And maybe that's someone like you. You just want the good parts of Jesus, the stuff that like makes you feel really good, like you get filled up real quickly with one church session, and then that's all you want. And then once they never give back that same thing, or they hardly ever give that same thing back, you're like kind of disappointed. But going back to the verse in John, when Jesus talks about the bread, he's talking about, one, the physical bread, and two, the spiritual bread. The physical bread being what he gave out to feed the 5,000. The spiritual bread being him and what he offers, what he gives to people. So people were more caught up in eating the physical that Jesus gave, rather than the spiritual which Jesus gave. It says that do not labor for the food which perishes, the physical food, but for the food which endures to everlasting life, which the Son of Man will give you. So by following God and under wholeheartedly, you get the food that never perishes. So back when I was a kid, we used to do communion I'd say weekly, out in the foyer over there. And someone would give a message. But me and my friends, we'd kind of like, inch over to like where the bread was, because back then we had like a roll, like a literal roll of bread that's been like cut from the top, and the insides have been like picked out, and you can just grab it like a piece. And me and my friends would be like standing there, just like, listening to the message, quickly take a drink of juice, and then after everyone had like their bread, we would eat our bread, wait for everything to be finished, and then like a pack of hyenas that have just got like a baby deer, we ripped that loaf of bread apart and just started munching away on this like carcass of a bread. Sorry, that was really dark again. But yeah, to me, what I failed to realize back then, that the bread didn't symbolize hitting my macros. It didn't signify me feeding myself for not eating breakfast in the morning before church. Instead, it symbolized the body that's been broken, that's been broken for me, so I wouldn't have to endure that, and also symbolized what Jesus could give for me. It wasn't about the bread per se. It was about think of why I'm eating the bread. So why are you eating the bread? It's to remember that Jesus' body was broken for you, and that he can offer you more of this bread that doesn't perish, but it gives you everlasting life. Now, if we move on to the blood. So the lamb's blood back in the Passover, so in Egypt, it symbolized deliverance. It symbolized deliverance from the angel of death, and also symbolized the deliverance from Pharaoh's rule and then into freedom, right? Likewise, Jesus' blood that's been spilled, if we choose to mask our, identities with the blood of Jesus, not literally, of course, but if we choose to cover ourselves, knowing that Jesus' blood was shed for us in order to save us, then so too we're delivered from Satan, from sin, from disease, you name it, everything negative in the world. If you think about it, Jesus died so that we wouldn't have to endure that no more. Just like the lambs died back in Egypt so that the Israelites wouldn't have to be in slavery anymore. Now jumping forward into the Passover in the New Testament, the lambs that they used for the Passover, because they would eat the lamb, it had to be a perfect lamb. So it couldn't be like sick, it couldn't be wounded, it couldn't be bruised. It had to be the perfect lamb. It had to be a male lamb without blemish. So they would have to go find this lamb, or they'd have to, from the previous year, start raising their lambs as perfect lambs so that they wouldn't get sick, they wouldn't get hurt. Right? And then when it came to Passover, they would kill it and they would eat it. So the lamb's blood, the physical lamb's death in the Passover had to be perfect. And then they would use that lamb, they would kill it, eat it. But back in Egypt, the death signified deliverance. And so did the death of Jesus, the lamb. I guess the spiritual lamb in this case. So he died, and through his death, through his shedded blood, so too we are delivered from sin, evil, Satan, disease, mental illness, all that. Anyway, to wrap up, I really challenge you guys to, next time, it's not even about the set place of communion. I guess in everything that you do can be communion. Whenever you're eating, thank God for the food that you're eating. Remember that he died so that you could be eating. But really just remember in everything that you do that Christ's sacrifice wasn't for nothing. That his sacrifice was to deliver us so that we could be free from sin, from everything that holds us back, everything that Satan wants us to give into, everything that isn't of God. That's why Jesus died, so that we could be saved from that. So I really encourage you, just with everything you do, just remember that everything you do can be a communion. It's not so much the fact the two emblems are kind of what make communion, but I guess communion could also be stripped back to remembering what God has done for you, regardless of what you're doing.